Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Watts here, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Today on Conversations with a Chiropractor, I am joined by Dr. Danielle. Dr. Danielle is a chiropractor. She's also a hypnotherapist. She's a coach. She's a speaker. She is a 2008 graduate of Logan Chiropractic School. Dr. Danielle, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So I always want to ask people how they became a chiropractor in the first place. Did you have injuries growing up? Was your family like pro-chiropractic?
I had injuries growing up, yes, but I didn't go to a chiropractor until I was like late teens, maybe early 20s.
Okay.
And I had only gone to a chiropractor probably like 3 or 4 times before I decided to go to chiropractic school, which I felt like kind of an outcast in a way in chiropractic school because most of my classmates had chosen chiropractic as a career because they had had a life-changing experience, like almost like a miraculous experience with chiropractic, and they wanted to be able to share that with other people. And I was like, I don't know, I just chose this as a profession.
That's awesome. What was your undergraduate degree in?
I studied business administration first. I was 1 semester away from graduating, and I had like a very early midlife crisis where I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I was 21, I think, at that time. And I decided to change my major. And this, I would not advise anyone to do this, but this was the path that I went on, and it did get me to where I am now. So I don't regret it, but I changed my major from business administration with an emphasis in marketing to human service agency management, which was like nonprofit management.
Okay.
It was sort of a transition from running businesses to running businesses that had more significant meaning to me, at least. And I wasn't in love with that either. It felt like more of the same, honestly. And then I changed my major to psychology, and then I changed it to social work. And so I actually ended up finishing my first bachelor's degree in social work, even though I was like 4 classes away from finishing my business degree. But it seemed like that was an important decision at the time. So I really wanted to make sure I was making the right one.
Yeah. As a mom of a just graduated senior and a senior in high school this coming year, we put so much pressure and emphasis. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to study? Who are you going to be? It's interesting because you probably now at this 1,000-foot height angle, you're like, wow, all of those business classes and those marketing classes, like you probably can see the value in that. And I think sometimes as chiropractors, we are a little bit of a therapist, a little bit of a social worker.
Oh, yeah.
And how valuable that background in marketing and business, even if you didn't get your degree, even if you didn't get those credits, it probably has served you really well.
Overall, yes, I would say so. Although looking back, I don't really remember that there was anything that I learned in undergrad that was real world applicable. It was kind of like textbook information, and that was, 27 years ago when I started. And so the world is much different now. We didn't really have social media back then, for example. So how we market today is much different than what it looked like then. But overall, I think it gave me the confidence to be able to start a business after chiropractic school and not feel quite so afraid of the marketing, because a lot of my classmates, I think just a lot of chiropractors in general, are terrified by that part. They're terrified by running a business. And I was like, I actually felt more afraid of the clinical aspects.
You did. Interesting.
Yeah.
And in my background, I was a critical care nurse. So the clinical stuff came so easy to me, but it was the business stuff that was really tricky because most of us, we went to different schools. You went to Logan, I went to Palmer. I remember like the one business class we had where we had like a 1,500 form to fill out. And I mean, and yeah, like times are changing and they continue to change. And I think that this is what's so cool about you. I followed you through your entire career, and it's been through social media. We've never met in person, but you've really you continue to change and adapt with the times. And I think that's what's so cool. I want to go back to where you were right after chiropractic school, but I think we should jump in right now to talk about what you're doing today with this new program that you're launching. The Visibility Vault is one of the programs you're launching. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that actually was not in my plan. I spontaneously decided to try it out last week. I had been looking at the different ways I can monetize content on Facebook through my creator profile, and it was an option that had been there for quite a long time. And I was like, why? Like, this has been just sitting here in front of me and I've been ignoring it. Like, what is this? Let me just see if this is something that people would want. And I think it was a week ago that I just announced that evening. I was sitting on the couch. I'm like, hey guys, I'm just going to open this subscription. Right now it's 99 cents a month at that time. Then I increased it to $1.99. Now it's $4.99. But basically what I'm doing there is just giving people content prompts. If they're a small business owner and they want to grow their business, but social media feels hard, it's an easy, low-lift way for them to get some support with that. So now we have 2 people enrolled so far. And I'm like, well, look, sky's the limit with this. Let's keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what is so cool about you is that you seem so authentic. And those of us who do have, I don't want to say issues, but most of us we're working in our clinics. Being in front of the camera is not our comfort zone. And so many of us have issues with being visible. And then you kind of address that perfection thing. Yeah, we feel like we're paralyzed sometimes by perfection, right? I'm not going to put this content out there until it's perfect or until it looks a certain way. And frankly, time is of the essence. And I love and applaud this program that you've launched because so many of us get stuck with some of those hangups.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been there. When I was an undergrad, I had a business communications class, and our final exam was really a final project. It was to give a speech in front of the class. Because I went to a small school, most of the people that I was in class with were people that I had other classes with, even though we weren't necessarily all friends either. But when it came time for finals, I took all my other final exams. And on the day that I was scheduled for my speech, I didn't go to that class. I just ghosted my teacher. I didn't get a passing grade for the class, and I had to repeat the class because it was required for my degree. It was the dumbest move of my life, probably. But I was so afraid to stand in front of the class and open my mouth and say words that I didn't prepare a speech. I could have gone, I suppose, but I had nothing prepared to say anyway.
Wow.
So I'm just not going to go. And now I speak on stage.
What do you think at that moment in your life? Do you think that you're shy by nature? Was there a time, were you self-conscious for a specific reason? Or was it just stage fright? What do you think made you ghost the class and have to take it all over?
Yeah, I used to think that I was shy by nature. I actually, now in my mid-40s, the more I heal myself, the more I feel that I wasn't actually shy. It was more like a trauma response than I'm shy. Because the truth is, I really like to be around people. I like to meet new people. I love networking, which most people are they don't like networking. I love just walking into a room and I'm like, I want to know that person. I want to know that person. Going straight up to them and introducing myself and doing my best to make that person feel comfortable speaking to me and leaving them with something that maybe they didn't realize or didn't know about themselves before. I just find that to be really natural. But when it came to standing in front of the class and speaking, I was so afraid of saying the wrong thing. Will I say the right thing? Will I sound dumb? Will they think I look stupid? And the list went on and on. And now that, I don't know if it's midlife or, a lot of us do a lot of nervous system healing, I don't feel as strong of a need to protect myself from other people's perceptions of me. And what I realize now is that my own perception of myself is really the problem. It's not what other people are thinking about me. It's what I think about me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's profound. Truly profound. Like if we took a snapshot of you now and the way that you just described, you sound like a very confident, extroverted person. But like you said, it was like a trauma response. And we could probably do an entire podcast on what you've done to heal yourself. I want to ask you, so now you're this confident woman, and in 2018, you speak on stage. Was that the first time at The Wave?
Actually, in 2018, I spoke at the Chiropractic. It was the first year that they had the Women's Summit at that event in Texas. And I was the only presenter for the Women's Summit.
Oh,
So that was a big thing. I happened to arrive in Dallas. I had a 5-month-old baby at home and 2 other kiddos, but I had this really severe abdominal pain going on as soon as I got to my hotel. And I went to bed that night and I woke up shortly after and I felt like the room is so hot. Why is it so hot in here? And after a few hours of tossing and turning and sweating, I'm like checking the thermostat. The thermostat was, I don't know, something like 68 at that point. I realized at that time, oh, I have a fever. This is not good. I have to present at, I think it was 8 a.m.
oh my gosh.
So I just tried to go back to sleep and pretend like everything was fine. I presented for 6 hours that day and flew home, went to the ER and found out that I was having an appendicitis and I had to have my appendix removed. That was a really wild experience, that whole thing. And then, yes, 2 months later, I spoke at The Wave in California.
Okay. How did you even survive those 6 hours with an acute appendicitis attack? I mean, that sounds almost like supernatural. How did you do it?
And it was really strange. The pain actually had subsided quite a bit by that point in the day. It was enough that I could stand and I could talk relatively normally. I was able to go to the airport and get home. Frankly, I was thinking I was having a gallbladder attack or I had gallstones and I was just going to go home and do a gallbladder flush and everything was going to be fine.
Physician, heal thyself.
Yeah.
So who chose you to speak and what did you talk about at that first expo? I mean, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, for so many of us chiropractors who are just doing our thing in our little old towns. I mean, that's what an honor. What an honor.
I think actually one of my previous clients was on the board for maybe the Texas Chiropractic Association, and she might have recommended me as a speaker. And there's a person there who I actually just saw him about 6 weeks ago at the Chiropractic again this year. His name is Jeff Johnson, I believe. Jeff Jenkins. He's I think the executive director of the TCA. And then he reached out to me and he said that I had been selected. And I was like, are you sure?
Check the spelling of my name, right? But
Yeah.
you, at that point, I know we're going a little bit backwards, but at that point, had you launched the Aligned Women business?
I had, yeah.
Okay.
I had about a year, maybe a year and a half prior to that.
Okay. So you graduate from chiropractic school and your first job is at Logan. Am I correct?
You're right.
At the chiropractic school. And
Yeah.
you are the director of sports and clinical stuff there.
Yes. Yeah. I was a resident for the first 2 years that I worked there. Then after my residency was complete, I became the assistant director of sports and rehab at Logan.
Okay.
That department doesn't exist anymore from what I understand. That was about a 4-year time period that I worked at Logan. I had my first baby, and after she was born, I went back to work at Logan. But I just didn't feel like I could do my job the way I had before she was born. Really all of us in the sports and rehab department, we were working a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends. We were traveling a lot. Sometimes we would need to be at work at 6:30 in the morning, which for me is like, that's a big deal to be at work that early. And then having a small baby at home, I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. And it brought me to a place of remembering why I had chosen a career in chiropractic in the first place, which wasn't to work in academia. It was to be able to have my own business and help people. And so I thought, well, I guess it's time to do that. It's time to start my own business because I really wanted to have more time freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many of us have struggled with that, like you graduate from chiropractic school and like I actually had a 6-week-old when I walked across the stage.
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, that wasn't exactly planned, but my husband and I, we were excited to have a baby, and that was just when Noah came. But I mean, the struggle of building a business, the sort of like intensity, whether, I know for sure now looking back that I put a lot of expectations on myself, right? Like, you're going to hustle, you're going to hit it, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, like something gives, right? And I think it's really beautiful and profound that you acknowledge that right away, that you were like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. I can't be the best clinician and the best mother working these hours. So like, bravo for like finding that out right away. So you then, or was it right away?
Well, the irony here is that I left my corner office and my paid vacation and my steady salary at Logan to go start my own practice because I wanted to have more time freedom. But I really lacked boundaries at that time. I really struggled in practice, not in the growth like my practice was growing quickly, but it was like that was the problem for me because I didn't say no to people. If they wanted to come or they said they could only come at 7 p.m., I was like, okay, fine, I'll make that work. I'll go pick up my baby and bring her back to the office. That wasn't really what I had wanted, but it took me going through those awakenings almost to realize there's a different way to do this. I don't have to practice the way that some of my mentors had told me, which was like, you just work hard and you push and you do whatever it takes to make this work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, I was the same way. Boundaries it wasn't even a word in my vocabulary. I was like, whatever you need, what you want to come in here? Yeah, I'll do it. I love my husband, super great guy, but it was, I don't want to say he wasn't supportive, but he was like, Stephanie, come on. Like, come on. What are you doing? But we feel that pressure. Yes. We feel, I think, the pressure to please and the pressure to build our business. And the first chiropractor that I ever worked for, there was a cell phone that one staff member took home every night. You were never going to miss a phone call. Like, it was just like, there is no such thing as no. It's yes, yes, yes. I had an fortunate, whatever, a lesson where I had a patient who was like a 50% no-show, right? I never knew whether she was coming or not. This was like pre-COVID. And one day she showed up like 45 minutes late for her appointment. And I had like 2 people in the waiting room and I had 1 person coming out of a massage. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that you were going to come. And I have 3 people in front of you. And they actually, 2 of those people said, oh, she can go in front of me. But she was mad that I confronted her. Well, I didn't even really confront her. I just said, hey, I didn't know you were coming. You're 45 minutes late. She wrote me the worst review on Facebook or Google or wherever. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like here's somebody who can't be responsible for their appointments. Like in no other realm. Can you imagine going to a hairstylist that you didn't show up for 50% of those appointments? I created a whole policy, a time policy, like how late you can be. And people didn't like it. I mean, you're the bad guy for having boundaries, right?
Initially, but I think that it helps to weed out some of the people who are just not aligned to that anymore, just like it would in our personal relationships, right? So if you're dating someone and they just have ways of being that don't align with your values, and you say, hey, when you speak to me in this way, I feel this way, please stop doing that. And they're like, oh, that's silly. Why would you feel that way? Don't worry about it. I don't mean anything by it. Or perhaps even worse, they continue doing it. That's not a good sign early on in a relationship. And in the best case scenario, we have the wherewithal to realize that and then make a hard decision, which might mean ending that relationship. In business, it's almost like that skill or lack of skill translates into how we relate to our patients, our clients, our customers. If you can't see that the way someone's behaving is violating your own boundaries, usually it's because you haven't really realized, like, this is a boundary for me. This is not a way to treat me or my business or my staff.
Absolutely. Like, isn't there a quote that says something like you're teaching people what you accept in their treatment of you, or something. There's something more profound that I can't think of right now, but yeah, we do like to tolerate that behavior. I take responsibility. Absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about your time with that aligned women group. Like, so that was, how many years would you say?
Gosh, it was about a 5-year period that I ran that program. And within, like, under the Aligned Women umbrella, we had a membership. There were 5 courses. We had 3 different masterminds. And then I worked with people privately as well. Talk about over functioning, right? Looking back on it, I would do things much differently if I repeated that phase of life over again. All of that was designed for female chiropractors. So some of the trainings and content was around work-life balance. A lot of that, like, meant learning how to set boundaries. And it's what we're talking about right now, letting women know it's okay to not say yes to everyone about everything all of the time. Even if people are mad at you about it, it's still okay. Yeah. It's okay to take care of yourself. And in fact, if we prioritize taking care of ourselves, then we're more likely to stay in practice longer. There's data on this, which I didn't know at the time that I created the training for all those programs, but later went to PubMed and started researching burnout for healthcare providers. The 2 things that all of the research pointed to was prioritizing your own needs, taking care of yourself, and having a community of support. And Aligned Women just kind of, it felt like coincidence. I guess I was intuitively led to create a community that offered that to women in chiropractic.
Well, it very much needed and very inspirational. And I know that probably both of us, I'm older than you, but we've probably learned from a lot of mistakes that we've made. And like you even said, I would have done things a little differently. Now, I know this is going to hit hard with a lot of people, but you got divorced during that time as well, right? Or after that?
I had closed down the Aligned Women program prior to my divorce from my children's father, which didn't really make sense to me at the time. But after 2020, I just had this intuitive feeling like this is done. And I don't know why. I love it. I remember on the last day, like the last official day of the program was June 30th of 2021. And I just sat down in my living room and I cried. And my then husband was like, why are you doing this if you're so sad about it? And I was like, it's hard to articulate. I still don't really have all the answers, but I felt this disconnect from the brand or the image at that point. So I was like, this doesn't feel in integrity with my values, and I just can't keep standing behind something that feels, for lack of a better term, it feels off. But through the space that created, then I realized a lot of other things needed to change in my life as well, and did go through a divorce. And then after that, that really set me back. It took about 2 years to just recalibrate and explore and heal a lot and decide what's next. I let anything land on the table. Do I just go get a job and be a regular person now, or whatever that means, right? Am I supposed to be a network marketer now, or what? Like, what is next? I shared this story earlier today. There was just this experience I had about a year and a half ago. I don't remember if it was February or March of 2024. And I remember waking up on a Thursday and feeling like my throat was kind of sore, but nothing out of the ordinary, right? Just seemed like maybe I'm getting a little cold. And I went through all my sessions that day. And by the end, I was like, I'm not feeling very good. My body's starting to feel kind of achy. Still thinking I might have a cold. That weekend, I went to my daughter's soccer game, which was an outdoor soccer game, but still not the brightest move on my part. I got back from soccer. I thought, okay, now I feel worse. My body's hurting more. The reality was that I'd been having a fever for about 3 days at that point. But because it had been so long since I'd had a fever, I didn't even understand that what I was feeling was a fever. So it was another maybe 7 days or so. My fever was gone, but my throat was so sore and it hurt to talk. And so then I was only whispering to people. And my kids went to their dad's house for his custody time. And at that point, I was like, I'm just going to stop talking at all. I'm not even going to try to whisper because what I've been doing isn't working. I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse. It's been almost 2 weeks at this point, and I'm just going to lay down on the sofa and do nothing. And 4 days passed.
Wow.
I had never not said words for such a long period of time. But by the fourth day, I was like, oh, I'm finally feeling better. It was a combination of rest, a silver throat spray that I was using religiously. And I was listening to a podcast that someone had sent to me that featured Zach Bush. He's an MD, but he has a very chiropractic lifestyle friendly philosophy, if you will.
Okay.
And so what he talked about in that podcast episode was how when we get a virus, for example, if we're exposed to a virus, that virus is there to help us upgrade in some way if we're able to slow down and let that process happen. So looking back on this, it's all very ironic, right? Serendipitous, really, that someone just happened to send me this podcast episode and was like, I think you would like this. I listened to it 3 times while I was laying on the couch over those 4 days doing nothing else. At some point, I don't think I was even awake. I was just like letting what he was saying, like letting the message just marinate in my body. And also realizing, yeah, I apparently need to just listen right now and not say anything. And I kept getting the word visibility. I kept hearing this word, visibility. And I was like, no, I don't want to be visible. I just don't. I don't feel well. So why? And it took me quite a while, probably over a year, to really integrate that experience and realize, oh, what this is leading me to is helping all kinds of small business owners create more visibility for their businesses, but particularly health and wellness practitioners, holistic healers, because we're the ones that struggle with visibility the most. And we have such amazing gifts to offer people. We are here right now on this planet to create change, to change systems and structures and to disrupt things. No wonder it feels scary, right? So supporting people through all of that became my mission, but it took quite a while to really become clear on that. During that 2-year period, I was like, this is crazy. I need to be more productive. I need to make more money. I need to do whatever. I should have my life figured out by now. And I couldn't force it. I couldn't push it. I couldn't make things make sense. It was just like I had to let go and really surrender to the timing that was beyond my control.
I think so many of us have a hard time sitting quietly, let alone like not speaking during a viral fever, like pseudo hallucinogenic time, maybe. I think it feels so difficult to be in the pot, stirring around, not really knowing like what's next. I think so many of us Westerners or type A or whatever you want to call us, it's almost an impossibility to just sit quiet and be quiet, but that still small voice only sometimes comes in those times of quiet because we can't just keep pushing through. We can't just keep hustling and bustling and hitting it hard. And so what a lesson for you to share with all of us. 2 years of I don't want to call it like the wilderness, but just kind of like wondering like what's the next step and where am I headed? And I think that this is one of the reasons that I've, started this podcast is for other people to benefit from stories. And I bet someone listening is in that wilderness thinking, my gosh, I just don't know what's next. I just don't know maybe even what my soul's purpose is or my calling. And I think your story, just from what I know, is an encouragement because your story can have many chapters, right? It's not like beginning and end. It's like chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 6. Like we have to give ourselves permission to pivot, right? And to change the trajectory. And when unexpected things happen, we have to give ourselves the grace to have quiet, to have time that seems maybe even stagnant, Yeah. So bravo.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very hard period of time because especially as a high achiever, someone that's typically type A, a little bit perfectionistic, I had a lot of judgment toward myself about what I was or was not doing, right? And like my age being a factor and thinking, you're in your mid-40s. This is not what's supposed to be happening in this phase of your life. And then from there, I would just get to this place of like, my whole life is over. Like called Eeyore energy. Like, how Eeyore's always sad and everything is negative. That was how I felt behind the scenes, behind closed doors for quite a while. And I had to just decide at some point, this is not serving me to be in my Eeyore energy anymore. We're done behaving this way. We're done thinking this way. Now we're moving forward.
You gave yourself a little pep talk. Yeah. What do you say to people who might have, I don't want to say an overconsumption or just the fear of being judged or the fear, I'm sure this goes right along with that visibility vault. What do you tell people? Do they need to do mantras? Like how do you, some people might not be able to lift themselves up by the bootstraps like you did. Like what kind of words or encouraging words do you say to someone who says, boy, I just can't get on camera or I just can't be visible or I'm not where I want to be? Like, what do you say to that person?
Yes, a couple of things. So one, we judge ourselves more harshly than other people judge us. Now, with the exception of course, people can come into the comments of your post and say all kinds of mean things. But if that happens, it's only hurtful if a part of you believes what they're saying. If they're like, oh, this person's a quack, they're practicing medicine without a light, chiropractors are not real physicians, whatever they might say, those are just words, just words. But they hurt when a part of you internalizes those words as true. Right? So really, when someone else's words hurt, they clue you into where you have work to do yourself. Because now if someone commented on one of my posts on social media and said, oh, this person's just a crazy chiropractor, I would be like, yeah, I am. And like, that wouldn't bother me at all. But I haven't always felt that way either. Right? If we are just always trying to avoid the mean comments or what I call keyboard warriors, like if we're always just trying to avoid having trolls, haters, whatever we call it, We never actually get exposed to the thing that we need to be exposed to so that we can change it. We can change our response to it. We can change how we feel about it. And that happens if you're willing to expose yourself to that possibility. And then when it happens, I teach a 3-step process. I'll share it with you. The process is to let the thing that hurts hurt. So if someone says something to you and it upsets you, it gets your nervous system all ramped up and you're feeling sad or afraid of what might happen next, let yourself feel all of those things. But for no longer than 48 hours. And then after 48 hours, we're going to look at what's the truth. Is there any truth? And what this person said. So if the feedback is more like something specific, not just random, oh, chiropractors are crazy, but as you had a negative review in the past, right? Like, was there any truth to what she said? And there may or may not be. But oftentimes, there's a little part of us that's like, yeah, this one part of how I behaved, I didn't feel good about that. There's the lesson. Like, that's the goal in this experience, to learn about how would you do that differently in the future? What will you stop doing? What will you start doing instead? And after that, just move on. It's done. That's step 3. Like, I'm going back to my regular content schedule. I'm going back to the networking meeting. I'm going back to sending those referrals to MDs or whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you've committed to doing to grow your business. We're right back at it. We're not putting it down for 2 months because we got our feelings hurt.
Yeah. Like, set a timer, right? Or set an alarm on your phone. Give yourself that 48 hours to feel the hurt and feel it deeply and move on, right?
Basically, though, sometimes people just need someone to tell them, like, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, let's get back to work. Because if we stay in the Eeyore energy, it's really easy to just stay in it. But that's sort of the evil in it, right? Like, it pulls you down and keeps you there. It keeps you from being on point with your mission.
Yeah. In this new phase of your life's journey and your career, what do you feel like your purpose and passion is?
Getting people outside of their comfort zones. It's a little sadistic, perhaps, but I know that when that happens, change is happening for them.
Yeah.
And it may not be comfortable. It's really rarely ever comfortable, right? But I have a really unique skill set of being able to guide someone into whatever it is that they need to do to create a different outcome. And then being able to help them hold themselves, not me doing it for them, but like, you can do this. Like, you can feel all of this and you can be okay and trust that this is working for your highest good. So, yeah, it's almost like activating a new timeline for them when they're able to go through that process.
I love that. Get out of your comfort zone. I love it. Tell me a little bit about the podcast that you have. Are you still doing a podcast?
I've actually had it on hiatus for almost 2 years now, but it's still published. And I refer back to episodes all the time. I have some grand plans for bringing this podcast back. You can find it at thehealthandwellnesspractitioners.com. I think also if you just go to healthandwellnesspractitionerspodcast.com, it's at either place. But there are 250 episodes, and we cover all kinds of things. We cover setting boundaries, taking your knowledge and packaging it to create an online offer or membership site, just kind of the basics of starting a practice. It's like the whole spectrum of all of things. And we also talk about clinical things too.
What a wealth of information for our listeners. Well, Dr. Danielle, I just want to ask, in closing, it's been so wonderful to get to know you a little more and let our guests hear your story and your vision and what you're doing. I'm sure that so many of them are going to be reaching out because that resonates, right? Like, we want to be invisible. We want to stay in our comfort zone. It's scary. It's hard. It's overwhelming. We think we can't do it. And here you are to hold our hand a little bit through the process for our greater good. And what a beautiful soul you are to be doing that. Tell our listeners where we can find you. How can we find you?
The best place to find me is on Facebook or Instagram. I'm pretty active on both of them. So if you want to just send me a message on either of those two platforms and let me know how you find me or where you heard about me, I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. Any last words for our listeners?
Oh, this is always an interesting question. And I try to just whatever comes through at the moment is what I share. I think the most relevant thing right now is that when we look at our own behavior, like with social media, for example, almost everyone listening to this podcast has a social media account. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that everyone that listens to this podcast has a social media account. And probably also spends more time scrolling on that social media account than what they would like to admit, right? Mm-hmm. And my invitation to all of us as small business owners, as practitioners, as healers, is to replace the amount of time that we spend scrolling with creating instead. Mm-hmm. And not spending more time scrolling than you have spent creating. Mm. Because that's a huge shift. It's an identity shift, really, when you go from consuming everybody else's content to creating content. You've changed your identity, and now you've stepped into a leadership role.
That's really beautiful. And I think that scrolling can happen so mindlessly, right? You know, you watch one couple dancing in the kitchen, and now you've seen 5 people dancing in the kitchen. That's a super wonderful challenge. Be a leader and be a creator. Well, Dr. Danielle, it's been such a pleasure. I'm excited for you and I to be in each other's lives on these processes of our careers. I'm going to end it right here. And thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at watchyourwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wattier on Instagram, or Watch Your Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.